Right, good morning. Morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, good.
Might even just do this as a discussion, it might be easier.
Yeah.
Alright, well I'm going to be talking about this, digital underwater archaeology, not so much, but more about photogrammetry. Okay, I feel ridiculous doing this with a microphone with two people. It's all right. Maybe they'll come in. Three, Jason's here. Here we go, yeah. Okay, 3D photogrammetry. Do you have any concept at all what that is? Yes? A little bit?
Yeah, probably less.
A little bit. These guys have, they've heard this before, that's fine. Alright, well let's have a look what it is. Photogrammetry is the science of making measurements from photographs. It was defined by Leonardo da Vinci in 1480. Don't stand there, come on in. Come on, I haven't got very many people here, come listen. It gets better, and we have 3D video at the end. It's awesome. Okay? First described 1480 by Leonardo da Vinci, 400 years before anyone invented a camera. I think that's quite forward thinking. The modern definition is creating digital 3D models from still photographs. Now this is big business with aerial photography, particularly with drones. It's really easy, you program your drone, you push the button, it goes up, takes 1,000, well, probably takes 500 photos, you land, every photo has GPS geotagging in it, you push the button, bing, a model appears. Underwater, there is no GPS. This should not work underwater, but it does, which is great. It just shows the power of the process that we do and actually how clever the software that we use is. So here we go, Leonardo da Vinci doing it with bits of string and a lute, I think. Someone told me it was a lute. So here we go. History of photogrammetry. Let's look at it. It's kind of like we go and do something. We built a tower, let's take a photo from the top of it. So this guy, French guy, went up a tower in Paris, took a photo, and then worked out how he could adjust the photo to turn it into a scale map. So basically looking at how to change the angle that he processed it in order to turn it into a map. 1855, someone invented the hot air balloon, they went up with a camera. 1909, Wilbur Wright, they invented an aeroplane, went up with a camera. Today, someone invents a different way of serving a hot dog. They take a photo, put it on Facebook. It's happened for centuries. Okay? Get to the middle of the 20th century, Otto von Gruber came up with equations, actually made it mathematically possible to calculate how to adjust the photographs. World War II, big business in photogrammetry. Now you're flying aircraft over the enemy, over their factories, over their cities, taking lots and lots of photographs. You then have this whole team of people who take the photographs and turn them into scale maps. They were using stereo photography a lot of the time, which meant that they could measure how tall buildings were based on the photographs. Now you know how many bombs you need to drop on that factory to flatten it. It's one of the good things and the bad things about war. You know, war generally bad, don't get me wrong, it's generally a bad thing, but it's very good for technological advancement. So this is where lots of clever stuff came from. In the 1950s, computers became more available, and the equations that von Gruber came up with, this guy Hobra basically digitized them and came up with a way that a computer could do all of the calculations without needing people to work it out for him. Okay, interesting history, but why is it useful? For me, it's really useful. I'll ask the question now. Are any of you archaeologists? Before I get too rude about archaeologists. Okay. So, in my opinion, the archaeologists think this is different, but in my opinion, it is much, much safer to send a technical dive team onto a deep wreck to capture this kind of data than it is to try and put the archaeologists there. Archaeologists do not care about diving. For them, it's just a tool for going underwater. Most of them are trained very shallow, 6-10 meters. A lot of the stuff I'm showing you on this is sub 75 meters, down to about 120. The deepest stuff I've got on here captured at 120. Those guys forget about the fact that at 120 meters, you've only got 20 minutes. You know, you can't beat physics, you've got to do the decompression. They're like, oh no, I need to measure this and this and this. You know, 20 minutes goes, it's like, come on, we've got to go. 25 minutes goes, we're now getting really into the red zone, at which point the dive team just have to take hold of the archaeologists and bring them home. Better just to send the dive team, get the data, leave the archaeologists in their nice, safe office with a computer so they can measure to their heart's content. Okay? But it's not just about archaeology, it's not just about shipwrecks, it's about biological as well. There is a university in Australia who have been scanning the same patch of coral reef pretty much every month for about 4 years. So what they now have is this time lapse of this bit of coral reef. But it's not traditional time lapse all from one direction. You can move around it, you can manipulate it, you can shrink down to each individual coral and look how it's growing or shrinking as the environment changes, and then you're tracking the weather and other things like this. And it's a really cool, really cool. I've seen some animations of it. Super cool watching this coral growing in super real time. It's also a really good way of showing the general non-diving public what it's like to be a diver, or the non-technical diving public, recreational divers who never really want to go super deep, what is down there. We've actually got a VR station on our stand where we're running some of these models through, so you can actually swim around the models. And the reason I did it is because basically the models just look super cool. That's why I started. A friend of mine showed me a model that someone had made and was like, you know what, that's awesome. I like that, I reckon I could do that. Here is one of the models. So this is not a video. This is actually an animation of the digital model we made. Now, does anyone know what this thing is? Looks a bit like a pillar. Yeah, that's what we thought. When we found it, we thought it looks a bit like a pillar. We found it 120 meters underwater at the edge of a cliff. I mean, the next stop is 900 meters deep. It's actually a thing called a thermaion, or the base of a thermaion. And a thermaion was a sacrificial altar. It would have been bolted onto the foredeck of a ship. Big bowl, massive great big bowl on the top. They've never found the bowl yet. They've actually, I'll rephrase that. For this design, this is the only one that's ever been found underwater, but it's actually only the second ever found underwater. We found the first one the year before. The first one we found, we have the bowl, but we've not found the bowl for this one. But they've got very similar ones that they found on land sites, but they still haven't found bowls for them. So it would have been on the front deck of the ship. It would have been like the sacred place on the ship. So when the ship leaves port, they would have put small offerings in it, burnt them, to send them to the gods to ask for safe passage. Then when they arrive at the next port, you burn another offering to say thank you. We found it 120 meters underwater. Whatever they burnt obviously was not what the god wanted. The rest of the shipwreck is actually at 65 meters deep, further up the reef. So kind of looking from where I am here, behind me is a reef that runs all the way up to the surface. This is in Livry, it's off the island of Livry in Sicily. I've done a lot of work out here. We're involved with the archaeological team out there. Okay, so what can we do with it? We can make a thing called an orthomosaic photo, which is basically taking an image from one direction and flattening it. Now, the traditional way to do this is you take several hundred photos and then spend hours and hours and hours in Photoshop moving and shrinking them to try and line them up to give you a flat view of the wreck. And it takes some artistic decisions, because you actually have to decide which bits you're going to cut out to make the image look right. But with photogrammetry, because we have a 3D model, a digital 3D model, I can simply say to the computer, look at it from this angle, and it will make the orthomosaic, which looks like that. Okay? So this is a wreck in Malta. It's about just under 70 meters deep, a German torpedo boat. You never see it this well, because, I mean, even in Malta you've got good viz, but this is 40 meters long. To get this kind of resolution, this kind of detail, you're never going to see it. You're never going to have the light on it to do it. And we can then zoom in and zoom in. PowerPoint doesn't like the big files, so I had to downgrade everything. The original image file, for anyone who cares about these things, is 85,000 pixels wide, which is pretty good. The digital reconstructions, we can make the models. 3D printing. Ryan? I'll try it out. Let's see if anyone gets the joke. What's this?
Don't do the joke.
It's mine. Okay, I quit. I don't do it again. Here you go. Have a look. This is a sea mine that I found, again, in Malta, 60 meters deep. Found it off the side of a wreck. Right? Yeah, big bomb. World War II British mine. It's actually designed for sinking submarines, because it's got pins on both the top and the bottom. If they were designed for ships, they only had them on the top. This one's got them on the bottom as well. I sent the model to a Navy EOD guy, and he said, how close to this were you? Like, 2 feet. He goes, that's about 300 feet too close. Apparently, probably still live. It's certainly not a training mine. So that's kind of cool in itself. Everything that we do gives us some level of scale. We can get fairly accurate scales and measurements from these models. Certainly a lot more accurate than you can do underwater with tape measures. So that's kind of cool as well. And then virtual reality. We can take it into a virtual reality engine, and then we can really immerse ourselves in the model. So, how do we do it? Right, first question. Who here takes underwater photos? Yeah. Who here dives with someone who takes underwater photos? How boring is it to be the buddy? Yeah? Okay. And how many photos would you expect to take on an average dive? Now you do a dive, let's say an hour long, how many photos would you take? Maybe 30? 30, 40, something like that? Yeah? I'm aiming for 2,000. 2,000 shots. I'm only aiming for 2,000 because that's about how many the battery in the camera will last for. After 2,000 the camera goes dead. So I'm taking a shot every 0.7 of a second as I move around the deck. And I need 80% overlap between one photo and the next photo. Which means I take a photo, I move about this far, I've got to take the next photo, move about this far. When I get to the end of the wreck, I've got to turn around, 80% overlap, and do it again. And I'm aiming to get coverage of the entire wreck from every angle. So that in itself is quite a challenge. But it's a lot quicker than trying to measure every single bit of that wreck. Lots of light I've said here. It's because we need very, very, very sharp imagery. It's unlike anything you do underwater in photography. Normally it's like, open up the aperture, long exposure, keep the ISO low so you get that lovely colour depth. High aperture, I need lots of depth of field. Fast shutter, I need no blurriness. ISO as high as I can without it going too grainy. It's still dark, put more light in. Still dark, put more light in. Here's a picture of me doing something in a cave in Sardinia. I've got 140,000 lumens of video light on me, and my buddy, who's up here out of shot, has got another 100,000 lumens on him. That was just about enough for what we were doing there. As you can see, the second photographer who was trying to take a photo of me, the photo's wiped out because I've got so much light coming in. She was struggling to get a good photo of me doing the job. So, what we do, we look at the site. Is it flat? Is it pointy? Yeah, nice technical terms. If it's flat, I do what I call mowing the lawn. You go along, you turn around, you come back. Go along, turn around, you come back. If it's pointy, we go round and round. Kind of fairly obvious. For most wrecks, it's not one or the other. We do both. We'll do mowing the lawn over most of it, and then when we see interesting bits, we'll go round and round them. Now we can do this on multiple dives. It doesn't all have to be in one go. On some of the sites that we're diving, we may only get one chance though. So we have to try and do a lot of this in one hit. And what happens? Right. For any of you who are Terry Pratchett fans, you'll probably get this, but inside the computer, there is a small imp. Okay. Got some today, there we go. Alright, small imp in the box. And what we do is we feed the imp photos. And the imp is looking at the pixels in the photo, and it tries to find contrast points. So points that it can detect where there's high contrast between neighbouring pixels. And we limit it to 40,000 per image. And it does this to every single image. And then it takes the points from photo 1, and it compares them to the points on photo 2. And it tries to match them. And if we're doing a good job, it probably gets between 2,000 and 3,000 points matching between photo 1 and 2. And then it tries photo 1 to photo 3, and then photo 1 to photo 4, and so on. And once it's done with photo 1, then it moves on to photo 2, and does the same, and the same, and the same. So as you can imagine, if we've got 2,000 photos, that's a whole lot of processing that it's doing. And then once it's found all of these matching points, it looks at how those points change in position relative to each other in each photo. And by looking at this between each set of photos, it starts building up an idea of where the camera was. And it iterates and it iterates and it iterates, and eventually it goes, this is where the camera was. And it generates what we call a point cloud. So it's a very basic skeletal outline of whatever it is that we're modelling, but with positions of where it thinks the camera was. And it looks a bit like this. I think these are really pretty by themselves. It's like the ghost of a ship. It's like the spirit of the ship has been taken out. So now that the software, knows where the camera was, we can run it again, and this time, because it knows where the camera was, it's going to add a lot more detail. And so it added in a few million more points. And we start getting this harder outline, but you can see, we can still see through it. It's not solid, it's still just dots. The next thing it does, just like a child with a join the dots book, it draws triangles between all of the points. Okay, and we get this, we get surfaces, so now it's hardened. And we can see some lumpiness on it, but I want you to look up here, there's nothing really on the top deck. So, the final bit. We ask the imp in the box to colour it in. And what it does is it looks at the triangle and it goes, I think the best photo of that triangle is from this photo here. And it cuts out a triangle, and it gets out its print stick and it glues it in. Okay? I've gone past the now, okay, and what it does here is it adds more realism into the equation. And so now we've got the colour back. Now this one's shallow, it's in Malta. Anyone know what it is? Rosie. Anyone who's dived in Malta has dived this wreck. I know because I have to find the gap between the dive groups to be able to do the scans. It's all blue because I did this scan in the middle of the day, bright sunshine, even with 100,000 lumens of video light, I couldn't get the colour back. I'm going to go back and do it at night at some point and see what we get. But look at the top. We can now see the rivets. Okay, so the rivets have come through from the photo side rather than the 3D model. Alright, well what can we do next? Well, we can do all sorts. We can do the stuff I said. Virtual realities, 360s, 3D printing. We can also just take the model and animate it so that we can get an angle on it you've never seen before. We can do things like this. Anyone here cave dive? Woo. Why's the video not playing? Play. There we go. Okay, where's this? Anyone know? You know. You know where this is. Yeah, this is in Florida. This is a place called Ginny Springs, the Devil System. We're swimming out of the cave. Okay, to make this model, how long do you think it took in the water? Take a guess. Take a guess. So in a day, 2 days, a week, 6 minutes. 6 minutes. To do the scan took 6 minutes. And we got that level of model. So that kind of shows you the power of what we can do with this. It took 3 weeks to process, but only 6 minutes of the dive. Okay, this is probably the best bit of photogrammetry, both underwater and above water I've ever seen. This is part of the dive team that I'm involved in on the Mars shipwreck. My friend Ingmar has done all this, reanimated it. Okay, this ship sank in 1564 in a battle. It was the King of Sweden's flagship. It blew up. Basically, the Danish and the Lubeckians came in. It had spent a day and a half sinking other ships, and then they ganged up on it and blew it up. 75 metres deep in the Baltic. It is 4 degrees on the bottom, it's 2 degrees midwater, and the visibility on average is about 1.5 metres. So you cannot see it like this ever in reality. Most people can never dive it, it's so heavily protected. But from the animation, from the 3D model, and cannon, the whole 120 cannon on the ship, it was covered in cannon. Incredible dive, but what we could do with it, that was 41,000 images to make that. We've now got about 70,000, and that model, what you see on the model there, it's only about 50% of the wreck you actually finished modelling. So we've now got a lot further through with the modelling, but we're still not quite there. Alright, time to put on your silly glasses. If anyone doesn't have them, Ryan over here has got them. Guys in the back, you can either come in and watch it, or you can carry on hanging there, but you should put on the glasses because you'll just get a bit dizzy otherwise. And I would advise coming close, because I'm used to doing this on a really big screen, and the little screen is not quite so good. And if you can all get in close and I can get a photo of you looking 1970s. I'm going to do that. Let's where's the selfie mode? Let's do this. Come on. Here we go. Everyone together. All right. Right. Everyone's got the silly glasses on. Let's have a go. Okay. This is a British warship, HMS Southwold in Malta, 75 metres deep. This is the result of one dive. So this was the first dive that not the first dive I did on, the first scanning dive I did on this wreck. So it's about 40 minutes of dive time doing it. We've done 2 more dives since and filled in a lot of the gaps. But this already is giving you a bit of a kind of immersive view of what the wreck is like. Unfortunately, the 3D system gets rid of the colour, so it's not quite as good as it could be. When we do it on the real 3D stuff, rather than the red-blue, you actually get all the colour as well. If you're interested, we have more glasses for those of you at the back. Okay, this one, a little bit deeper, 112 metres deep. This is a site called Panarea 3. Again, it's in the Aeolian Islands off Sicily, archaeological site. This is where we found the first ever underwater thermal. And it's currently on a museum tour. It's been around the world over the last 2 years. 3,500 amphora by our estimates based on measurements, digital measurements of the site. Okay, another one in Malta. This model's a bit different. I used a Paralens action camera to make this model. Just on video mode, it was an experiment. This is the Polynesian. It's 140 metres long, one dive, 40 minutes, and we were able to make the model of it. Now, it's not very high definition. You can see the fuzziness in the edges. And this is partly because it's video, partly because I was scootering fairly quickly in order to try and cover all of the distance of the wreck. Super 3D, sorry about that. This one is that thermal that I showed you earlier. You can see the level of detail that we get from the scan. Okay, this was one scan underwater. We were 120 metres deep, we had 20 minutes of bottom time, and we managed to get this level of detail on the object in the scan. So it kind of shows you why I prefer to send the dive team in and leave the archaeologists in their offices, ideally padded so they can't hurt themselves. Phil's now joking, he's working with archaeologists. Right, a bit more cave diving. This one in Florida, a place called the Rocky Horror Tunnel in Madison Blue Spring. The biggest bits of this tunnel are 90 centimetres high, about 90 wide. There's a corner that's a lot smaller, which is where most people get stuck. It takes about 15 minutes normally to swim through this passage, and the bottom is all clay. So if you're the first person through, it's amazing. If you're number 2 or number 3, not so good, and when you have to turn around to come out, you know what you're about to get. But you don't have to do it now, because I did with the 3D. Another archaeological site, this one is the USS YP-589. It's one of the wrecks that NOAA in the US are charged with protecting, and it is off the North Carolina coast. They came to us and said, look, we keep doing these photomosaics, but they're not accurate. What can you do? So we sent the dive team in, and this is the results from the dive team. We gave them the dive team results after about 2 weeks. We also put a submarine on the site with about $10 million worth of laser scanners. They came up with a better job, but it took them 18 months to generate their info. So what we could do with the dive team very quickly gave a pretty good result compared to millions of dollars worth of high expensive kit. Back on the Rosie. I use the Rosie as a test site because it's shallow, I'm in Malta a lot. So this version of the model was made again with a little action camera, just swimming round and round it. No lights, just with ambient light, just to see how it worked, and it worked. Another archaeological site in Lipari, a place called Capistello Bay. It's the site of one of the first ever deep water archaeology projects in the 1970s, 65 metres deep. What you can see here are the deck planks from a ship that sank around 300 BC. The whole area is littered with amphora, and actually the bottom of the reef is 120 where we found that pillar-shaped thermal. So we think that came off this ship. Unfortunately, in the 1970s, they actually killed 2 archaeologists on the project, and the project got stopped. It was all saturation diving and submarines. We now send in small dive teams who can do 40 minutes of this depth range, capturing the graphical data, and then they can use it in offices. All right, what's this? Anyone know? It is. It's the top of a Roman anchor. It's made of lead. It's almost 2 meters long. It's 240 kilos of lead. You would have had an oak beam coming out the middle of it, and then another piece of lead at the bottom with 2 big oak spikes. These things, we estimate, must have weighed over 500 kilos in total. And in Roman days, they didn't have winches, they had slaves. Now, we have found hundreds and hundreds of these on the seabed around Lipari, and I'm pretty sure it's because once it gets snagged, you're just going to cut it. There's no way you're going to pull that out.
Where you find this lake?
Yeah, well, we might have found particles of slaves. One of the interesting things, actually, on the anchors is one of the things they. That's right. There's been no more video. One of the interesting things is they actually, in the anchor, they moulded bones. So there are bones. When they melt the lead, they put a few bones into holes in the anchor for good luck. Normally animal bones and stuff, but this is actually one of the things that the archaeological team are doing. Is on a couple of these anchors, they're drilling into the anchors to try and extract the bone to then research the bone. So kind of, maybe we did find bits of slave, I don't know. Anyway, that's a very quick introduction to the concept. I don't know if I've got time for questions now, but if you do have questions, or if you want to come and have a play with the 3D system, we've got a virtual reality system on our stand, the GUE booth, Global Underwater Explorers. We're just there, just the other side of AP here. So yeah, please come and have a look. Thank you very much.